Good morning, gardening friends. It's early morning, about 6:30, August 20th, and it's already in the mid-80s out here. But the one blessing with all this heat is the mosquito population has diminished somewhat. So I don't have to do a lot of spraying of myself. Here you can see the brugmansia is in bloom. The heat is taking its toll on the flowers. It's getting up to nearly 100 or 100 every day. But everything is still looking lush and tropical. My plumeria is turning yellow. I'll have to read up and see if that's just a normal thing. I haven't had a plumeria in ages. This one I bought about 3 years ago, and this is the first year it set out any growth. It coincided with me repotting it. Sarracenia is doing well. I did a silly thing yesterday. I made some little neck clams for supper last night, and I put the spent shells in this pot over here, and I just put them on the surface. And an animal came through yesterday and started digging in the pot and threw all the shells all over the deck. I've already picked them up. And you can see what happens to my water features when it probably was a raccoon because it was washing itself. So I'll have to drain that and clean it up. So apparently I do have a background of other creatures that come in the garden at night. Normally they don't do any damage, and I guess I kind of ask for that by putting the shells on top of the fresh shells on top of the dirt. I guess they were getting those little muscle bits that stick to the shells. Bananas are still doing fine. I did notice, and I made a comment last week, that what these leaves do in the heat of the day is they basically will fold onto themselves like so, and it allows sunlight to get to the bottom of the roots. I assume it's some kind of a reflex to minimize water evaporation. But as you can see, these were not watered yesterday, and they open up again, they unfurl at night. Miss Mimi is out, enjoying the day. I did some cleanup back here. I cleaned up my fatsias. The heat has taken its toll on certain fatsias. Here's the residue yet of heat damage, as well as over here. I had to cut the top of one of the larger branches down. But it is what it is. It will survive. Oh, this angel's trumpet is blooming as well. This one has stopped wilting in the 100-degree heat, so apparently it's put out enough roots that I don't have to worry about it anymore. Here you can see this pecan is about 6 foot tall. It's actually a nice straight tree. I trimmed back the blueberries a little bit yesterday just to try to keep them roughly the same shape. And I also trimmed back these white jasmine. Is it Trachyospermum jasminoides? I did find out one thing. I was watching, it was a rabbit hole I went down last week. The yellow jasmine, which I have back against the fence in those 3 trellises, turns out the pollen in them is somewhat toxic to honeybees, as opposed to the white jasmine it doesn't bother the bees, that is. And come to find out that the yellow jasmine, or Carolina jasmine, is native to the southern U.S. And the thing I didn't know is honeybees are not. Honeybees were introduced into this country from England. We have our own bees, but the ones that manufacture honey were brought in from Europe. And they don't know enough to stay away from the Carolina jasmine. And apparently the jury's a little bit out of research on the research of that, but apparently the young bees love to get into the yellow jasmine pollen, and they eat so much that they become lethargic and die, whereas the older bees that just eat a smaller amount are fine. And the native bees, it doesn't bother. Go figure. Miss Mimi is out. Look, oh, I hear a squirrel somewhere. I did stake up this angel's trumpet because it was starting to get too floppy. So I straightened it up. And, oh, baby's here. And cleaned up this ladyfinger palm. Finally got all of the winter kill out of it. It's looking a lot better now. We had a couple of cool days last week, and therefore I was able to get out in the yard and do some intensive gardening, which I hadn't been doing in a while because of the heat. And here you can see my bougainvillea is absolutely gorgeous. Reason being, I went to Lowe's and they had a sale. They had marked down their bougainvilleas, and I bought two. They were half price. The other ones that I had here hanging, I've had for probably 4 or 5 years. And they kind of played out. Nice bush, but they didn't bloom, so I bought 2 more and put one on each side. Oh, and I did finally figure out what is going on with this sedum. I was actually sitting, and actually you can kind of see over here, there's a piece on the side of the pot. I was sitting on the deck and noticing that apparently I've attracted a bunch of house wrens. And they absolutely love to land on that pot and snatch a twig of sedum and take it off with them. So, in the overall scheme of things, that's okay. I guess in the overall scheme of things, if they drop it along the way, like over here, in that pot, it will root. And so we'll have a neighborhood of that sedum before you know it. But at least that explains, I've been pulling my hair out what's left, trying to figure out why is that dying, and it turns out it's not dying. The birds are just harvesting it. They haven't discovered the ones in the ground or the ones on the other deck, so I don't plan on showing them to them. Oh, there's a bee following me around. I'll have to clean out my water features tonight, or today. Here's what it looks like after the raccoons are done eating the shells covered with dirt. It is a little annoying, but when you have water in your backyard, you will attract wild animals. That is one of the reasons I tried having a water garden years ago. I had it in this little corner where I have the Yuletide camellia. It was a big pot, and about every 3rd day, some animal would have gotten into that pot and knocked all of the water lilies and other things over. So I just can't have a water garden per se. So what I do is I tend to grow my bog plants in individual pots. And the trick I've learned with keeping raccoons out of my pots is, all of you organic gardeners need to cover your ears now. Spray your pots spray the tops of your pots, the dirt in other words, with an insecticide. and the animal will dig it up, taste it, and then never touch the pots again. Here's where I put the old plants that I took down. Bougainvillea, or bougainvillea? Bougainvillea, not Aya, bougainvillea. And I may keep them, I may not, but for now I just stuck them there. Let's see the progress of my air potato. Looks like that's the only one so far, but I imagine there will be others. Let's go around to the front. Miss Mimi's freaking out because I'm leaving. I'll be back. The big news around front is they did go ahead and pave my street. They haven't opened it for traffic yet, but it's been paved yesterday. I did some planting out front. Oh, let's see if Anna the banana spider is still here while we're passing by. Yep, she is. Hello there, Anna. She'll be there probably for another week or so, and then they go wherever they go. I did take out my string beans, and I put in some curly kale for the winter. Planted that. Also in the front, I got tired of seeing just bare ground, so I put in some marigolds. I thought that would look nice here for the fall. They should last through until first frost. And this year I put some on that side as well. Here you can see the newly blacktop patch, and the street is almost done. They were working in the mud pit across the street, planting the trees, and apparently they severed an electrical cable because there are no lights in that parking lot at night now. It's dark as Egypt. Here everything is looking good. The sod is slowly catching. And here you can see my first attempt at planting out at the street. I bought 2 clumps of bananas. And this one that's looking the worse for wear, this one, is a pup that I sliced off of one of the bananas in the front of the house. So I thought I would have a clump of bananas. This is where the oak tree used to be. But that way, when you look from here, you'll see bananas in the foreground and bananas in the background. It should do well over there. Eventually, I will fill this hole up, that gap, with aspidistra. That's what I'm going to have to work on. This aspidistra, this is what aspidistra looks like when it hasn't been cleaned for a year. And what I'll be doing this week is slowly working my way through cleaning this up. Since now the construction is pretty much done by the street, I'm gonna go ahead and pretty this view up in the front, cut some of the sides of my azaleas that are protruding out too far, and just kind of make this look like a pleasant garden. Now that also, since they've widened the street, or at least put the sidewalks in so they won't widen the street, I never put anything of value here because in the back of my mind, I always thought someday they're going to take it out when they do the street work. Well, now that's all been done. And so these are volunteer Nandinas. And I may or may not leave them, but I now have the opportunity, when I work over these aspidistra, to perhaps introduce something that looks a little prettier. I'm glad I planted this crepe myrtle a couple of years ago. it has doubled in size, and it will look nice eventually. Maybe in another year it'll, well, next year will be the third year. So hopefully it will jump up next year and fill in this gap. At the corner where that was, I used to have a large loquat, similar to those other ones, but inexplicably it died. Well, I shouldn't say that. It was looking a little bad, and I pruned it hard, and that was probably the wrong thing to do because it killed it. Live and learn. I am going to keep this. I was debating what to do with this cassia, and I think what I'm going to do is put some stakes up and just splay it out and let it grow as tall as it wants to grow, and it will have flowers all up and down the stem, so I look forward to that. But right now it's just growing kind of straight up, so I'll put some stakes in and maybe flatten it out and give it a fan shape, so it'll give a little screening from the street and provide some winter color. This is also an opportunity where the bottle tree is to plant something. Don't know what yet. I'll know it when I see it. What I did do over here is I went, after I got rid of the cucumber, and I thought, what can I plant here that'll give me a little bit of color year-round, and I decided to do flax lilies. I already have flax lilies in the back, so it kind of echoes what's back there. I haven't really done much in here. It hasn't needed much other than watering. Ooh, that is really fragrant, the butterfly ginger. And the knockout encore. The encore azaleas are blooming again. They'll do that periodically through Thanksgiving. Everything here is basically just looking green and lush, which is all that can be expected. Of course, I have to work at it to get it looking this way. I've water about every third day back here. My motto is always water what's wilted. Fortunately, back here, everything is pretty much established, so not much wilts. The heat has taken its toll on the ferns, but those ferns were volunteers. Actually, they volunteered over here. And what I did is, since they did so well, I spread them around as sort of an understory plant. Just needs a little cleanup here and there. I'll tell you what though, this wandering dude that I took cuttings of and put in this circular bed this spring have done exceedingly well. There are a few gaps here. Those are the gaps when I flip this bird bath over. The splash of water kind of makes a little spot. It divides my plants, but it doesn't hurt them any, and certainly the water helps. So basically all I've been doing here is watering in the front yard, other than planting the flax lilies. I'm letting that little sprout grow from the fig tree at the base. I don't know if you can see it. Figs are extremely easy to root. So I'm going to let that grow a little, probably about a foot long, and then I'll cut it and try to root it and put it somewhere else. The bananas are looking well. Full disclosure, you do get a lot of yellowing leaves like this. So probably about once a week I'll go through and cut the yellow leaves off. That's one of the reasons it looks so green and lush, is the leaves that die I do cut off. You can see the stubs here of the ones that I took off, but it doesn't take but 30 seconds to do. And that's about it. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, road construction will be wrapped up. The view from here is looking better. You can see the trees that they planted diagonally across the street. So eventually the view of that shopping center will be obscured. The one thing is kind of interesting, I won't go there now. They did put an island in the middle of that street. And I just can't envision, with the traffic that we get here, someone risking life and limb bringing a lawnmower out there to mow the island. Here you can see the heat has taken its toll on my Australian tree fern, but the newer fronds are coming in fine. This is only my personal theory. I don't know for a fact, but it seems like those fronds, if they come out in the heat in these 100-degree days, they seem more resilient than the leaves that came out when it was cooler. And that those just sort of burn, so I have to be careful not to touch it too much because I'll be itchy. However, it has made a nice tree form already at the base. And that is one of the plants I do water. I don't wait for that to wilt. Basically, about every other day, I'll come out front and water everything in a pot, and then whatever's wilted, or if it's really hot, I will go ahead and water everything. But there you have it. Have a good day. Again, stay hydrated, stay cool, and take advantage of getting outside, because at least here, the mosquitoes have died back a little bit because of the heat. Take care now. Till next week.